Last Friday, as William and Catherine, the Prince and Princess of Wales, were surprising their fans who were waiting for them along the Mall in London. Less than an hour's drive away, Prince Harry was dealing with the Last Supper. Reportedly, he arrived earlier in the day on a commercial airline from LA, and it was reported that Harry went right to Frogmore Cottage, his and Meghan's official UK home that of course they're losing access to. Now that is a home that really tells us exactly what can be achieved with only an 8-figure budget and the services of London's most in-demand interior designer. So while William and Catherine were there with the people, smiling and taking countless selfies, Harry was facing what may have been a very lonely last dinner for one in his soon-to-be ex-abode. Who knows what he ate? I don't know if he ordered a pizza or maybe he had some kind of frozen dinner stuffed in the freezer somewhere. Maybe he had himself a cold bowl of baked beans, the only thing left in the pantry. Now that Harry is back in the US after having survived the gauntlet of his father's coronation, details have come out about how he spent that 28-hour trip. Things are about to get pretty sad. So, leading up to the coronation weekend, the chances of Harry and the rest of the family enjoying any kind of warm, tender moments involving hugs or even handshakes was highly unlikely. And the story of how we got to this point is nothing new. This is something we have covered many times. In the past 6 months, thanks to Harry and Meghan and Netflix, they have made one of the most horrible attacks on Buckingham Palace since Thomas Becket was mouthing off about Henry II. And then, of course, we got Spare, filled with Harry's tales about his penis, the whole book basically a long testament to Charles's bad attempts at parenting. And while his family was not going to make any official comment on the book, information about how they have felt has slowly leaked out. A friend of William's, for example, told the Daily Beast that he absolutely hates Meghan and Harry, and he feels utterly betrayed by them. And then Queen Camilla's bestie, the Marchioness of Lansdowne, recently spoke to the Sunday Times, revealing that Queen Camilla was hurt by Harry's claims. And then one of King Charles's closest friends, Lord Nicholas Soames, said during a recent radio interview that Harry's treatment of his father had been a terrible blow for the king. Harry did accept the coronation invitation, Meghan did not. And apparently the king and the duke had some type of heart-to-heart talk, according to The Sun. But in other places, the Sussex mouthpiece Omid Scooby-Doo told Morning TV recently that father and son had actually not discussed the details and the points that Harry wanted to go into. So I don't know what exactly that heart-to-heart was about, maybe the flight details? So it was no surprise that the weekend was going to be pretty grim for Harry. He was about to come face to face with the family members he sacrificed, all in the name of money. But what wasn't really discussed in the reporting leading up to the big day was just how much empty time Harry would be spending all by himself. Earlier this year, the news came out that the king had decided to kick Meghan and Harry out of their home on the Royal Windsor estate, reportedly only around 24 hours after Spare was published. So the weekend's quick trip back to the UK, in all probability, was Harry's last time staying there. Just him and probably some old socks shoved in the corner of a closet and maybe some dust bunnies lying around. But other than that, it sounds like the place is pretty empty. Just imagine what it must have been like for Harry spending Friday inside of Frogmore for the very last time. While his family was busy enjoying each other in London, Harry had an entire afternoon and evening to spend in a house full of memories with nobody there with him. And there haven't been any reports suggesting that maybe he caught up with friends. I think Meghan Markle has alienated him from all his friends, so that's not very likely. And we didn't hear anything about him spending time with his family. In 2019, Harry and Meghan moved into Frogmore, and not long after, they supposedly welcomed their first child, Prince Archie. The image of Harry all by himself for the very last night of their tenancy, his family thousands of miles away, half a world away, really does tug a little bit at the heartstrings, no matter how you feel about him. When night came, Harry would have had his final Frogmore dinner, maybe all by himself, and just a short walk away was his brother, his sister-in-law, his nephews, and his niece gathered around the kitchen table, enjoying a nice supper together, and this is something that Harry certainly would have realized too. And then Saturday morning rolled around, and it was time for the big event. Dressed in a custom Christian Dior morning suit, a fact that the fashion house didn't waste much time in bragging about on social media, Harry was picked up around 9:30 in the morning, and he was driven in a black BMW into central London, according to the Telegraph. About an hour later, he arrived at the Abbey at the same time as Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie and their husbands, Eduardo Mapelli Mozzi and Jack Brooksbank, and of course his uncle Prince Andrew as well. After telling the Archbishop good luck, it was time for Harry's long, lonely walk down the aisle to his seat. He was left to face all of that while his wife supposedly protected her peace at home in Montecito. Inside, his reception was rather cold, that cannot be denied, and he was mostly left to make small talk with the husbands. It looked like even his cousins didn't want to talk to him. By the time the long ceremony was finished and the Archbishop of Canterbury was considering putting his feet up and enjoying a celebratory drink, Harry was already starting the long journey back home to Montecito. But first, he had one little stop to make, and now we know, thanks to the Telegraph, that Harry was in fact driven from the Abbey to Buckingham Palace, where he spent less than half an hour. So what does that mean? Does that mean that there was some kind of lovely family moment after all between father and son? Maybe Charles's other son delivering a beautiful homage of his own in some kind of downstairs palace hallway? Unfortunately, as far as we know, that's not what happened. According to the Telegraph, that little stop was for logistical reasons, and because it allowed him to take a moment out of the public gaze following the 2-hour Abbey service. So I don't know what that means, that he just needed to take some deep breaths maybe, and just like that, it was all over. He was off to Heathrow's Windsor Suites, the costly paid-for VIP service available to anybody willing to get their credit card out. And it's much like the last trip that he took to the UK in late March, when the king was too busy to visit with Harry. This time around, it seems like Harry did not, based on the reporting, see his family for even a second or moment outside of the Abbey. There wasn't even any kind of catch-up with his cousins, including Eugenie and Jack. Now they are the only members of the family who have visited the Sussexes in California. During what could be Harry's final time participating in a royal event until his father's funeral, the fact that no opportunities were taken to actually have a conversation from either direction is such an incredible shame. If the rift between Harry and the family seemed big during the Queen's funeral last year, well, now it looks even bigger. We know from the history books that when the various powers got together to put an end to World War II at Versailles, they enjoyed a really decadent menu of French food, from flambéed this to cream-drenched that. And if a good dessert could help to put an end to the Great War, just imagine what a royal family member showing up with Harry's favorite food and drink could do here. So perhaps that Friday night dinner was actually the Last Supper, not only for Harry at Frogmore, but for any chance to just quietly put an end to this horrible feud.